Welcome to the ithink podcast. John Everett Martin has returned for the third time. Mm-hmm. He is the first guest to come on the podcast 3 times. Thank you so much, John. I'm so honored, as always, that you came out today. Wow, where to even begin? Let's start with the numbers. I like to start with the numbers from the last week. Always, guys, we're not bragging or anything like that. I'm just sort of making it clear, the full, when we zoom out, we have a big international audience at this point, and this is fascinating to me because I like to speak directly to these countries, because a lot of the time some of these countries, they don't get the recognition they deserve, even though a lot of people across the world are curious about what we're talking about, what you're talking about, John. So last time it took so long, I just paraphrased it into just the top 10, 15. So we got United States, 44,000 for the week, 763. UK, 6,800. Australia, 3,000. Canada, 3,000. Germany, 2,000. Sweden, 1,100. Netherlands, 1,100. Ireland, 1,000. India, about 800. New Zealand, about 800. South Africa, 700. Norway, 535. Denmark, 498. And Poland, 438. So big numbers as always, John. Talk to me about that. How are you reacting to this? Because to me, honestly, it's a little bit shocking that there are people in all of these random countries just listening to what we're saying. They're listening to you. It's generated a lot of hype. Talk to me about that. Is it shocking to you, or have you seen this kind of thing before?
I will tell you that I don't think that I'm shocked by it, because I think it's something that I have always wanted to do.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I kind of like is, I don't want to say anything against, because we're on the same platform as a lot of these people are.
Yeah.
However, when I go to and I look at the reels, or I look at clips of some of the things that are out there.
Of course.
And I like that we are speaking knowledge, we're speaking truth, we're speaking information that can be helpful. I get entertainment, but I think you can entertain and also be informative. So that's what I like about this. If I'm going to be out there and people are going to be watching me, I'm glad it's not because I'm doing backwards flips in a thong. You know what I mean? I'm glad that I'm saying something, especially if there are countries out there or people who gender roles are strong and thoughts are limited. So when you can get a man who tries to be eloquent, whose intentions are good,
of course,
to lift you up, to educate you, and to be on your side. It's not here to tell you that So if I'm popular, like I said, even as a singer, if you come and see me sing, if you come and see me, I know you're coming towards love.
Yeah.
You're not coming here to be argumentative. You're coming here to be supportive, and you're coming here to be loved. Because
of course.
I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah, and I love that sentiment, John, and I think that's something which is really important, especially in our culture and society today. We've been seeing a lot of outrage and, just tension all across the world recently. And I try not to pay attention to the negative things which are occurring in the media, because I notice that for me personally, when I worry about the media, when I worry about world events, etc., it really brings down my aura. But when I just sort of focus on things that are directly tangible and involved in my own life, like this podcast, for example, that gives me a healthy place and productive place to put all of this energy.
Which is a wisdom beyond your years.
Thank you, John.
No, truly it is. I'll tell you a story. One time, I was working at the bar, and there were these 2 gentlemen that were sitting in front of me for an hour and a half, and they're just sitting right in front of me, so I can't leave my space. And they're talking about all of the problems that are going on in Afghanistan and all these things that are going on and on and on and on. Finally, about after an hour, I said, guys, I am sorry. I don't normally typically do this, but you've got to stop. I said, I cannot listen to this any longer, because you are just talking and debating and you're getting all riled up, and you have nothing to do this. You have no power to change it. You are not in a position to do it. I said, if you want to change the world, there was a lonely person sitting right next to you for the last hour. If you had just acknowledged that human, you would have changed the world. It would have changed her day. She would have walked away. Instead, you guys just babbled for a couple of hours about nothing. And when you leave here, the only thing you're going to leave here is with a buzz, because you didn't acquire anything worth anything. You still don't agree with each other. In fact, just learn how to change the world in a better way. And like I said, I know that with this term, I'm different than the previous term of the same gentleman, because you can't let the little things bother you. You got to keep your eye on the big picture.
100%, John. And it's like these people, I don't like to say these people this, these people that, because we're all human beings truly at the end of the day. The thing is, though, like, let's take that example you just gave, those guys at the bar. They're worried about this and about that, talking about these issues which have nothing to do with them, and they're neglecting the people directly in front of them, and they're not making any sort of meaningful impact on those people around them. So, you see this pattern repeated all throughout society, and, in familial context and relationship and, at business, at work, at school, whatever it is, people are not focused on helping the people around them, because it's the little things that make a big difference. It's like making a compliment. Like, how often do we make compliments? I think little things like that, and a smile. Like when you go to the bodega or whatever, and you're checking out, the guy at the bodega he doesn't want you to do anything, but when you're coming off with this serious negative energy and you're bummed out about something and you're projecting that onto him and the people around you, that sullen negative attitude, that's contagious just as much as positivity. So I would really encourage people to try and stop being so serious, stop taking life so seriously, because it bums out everyone around you.
Well, I'll tell you something. I believe that, one of my traits, again, I'm not going to change too much. I always try and modify and become better. But the one thing that I will tell you is that my relationship with my male friends is so much deeper than my male friends' relationships with each other.
Yes.
And it's primarily because I don't do something called sarcasm.
Yeah.
So I understand in man language, like, hey, fuckface, you want a beer? That is, I love you to your buddy.
100%.
Yeah, I get that. But I'm not that guy. I won't say something like that.
Yeah, no.
So what happens is, I remember, so if you come in and you say something, I'll always just say, hey, handsome, how you doing? And then you don't really know how to do it. So other people would so what happens, I remember a friend of mine said to me, he said to his friend, we're all hanging, he goes, we're always beating each other up. Why don't we beat John up? We don't. And I said to him, I know why you don't. It's because if you were to play catch with me and you threw me the ball and I never threw the ball back to you, how long are you going to play catch with me?
Yeah, 100%.
So when you call me something and I don't respond with something worse, it doesn't go any further. In fact, like when you say, hey, whatever, and I say, how you doing, handsome? They just don't know what to do. You know what I mean? So it changes it. And I also know that most men, again, there was a woman I used to work with, and she said sometime, I overheard her say, she says, I don't know what it is with John. I've been married for 40 years, and I don't see my husband hugging his buddies and doing all this thing. But when John is at the bar, these men walk in the bar and give him the biggest hug. He hugs them back. And it's only because I believe that we do want that as men.
100%.
They just don't know how to do it.
You're totally
And I'm
right
secure in myself that I just want to love you. I don't need to beat you up. But now the other side of that, though, is I don't pick out your flaws. I'm not lying, so when I find your goodnesses, I'll do them. But lots of times what happens is I believe in the self-deprecation side much more than, like I've often said, like the David Lettermans and the Conan O'Briens, the joke was always on them.
Yeah.
Where the Jay Leno, the joke was always on the guest.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's ever really appropriate to make a joke at a guest's cost.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So what happens though is that when I'm self-deprecating, but I'm lifting you up, sometimes the people that I'm talking to think they have no flaws, but I'm recognizing my flaws, so they remind me of my flaws.
Yeah.
You know, so like I'll say something, whatever, and they'll say, well, and I'll say, well, I'm not the best driver. But then later on, now they start telling me what a rotten driver I am. And it'll be like, well, if you want me to go down a list of things that I don't think you do well, I can. But I don't. So you got to just keep it real. 100%. And I don't have a problem admitting my flaws, and I have no problem admitting my strengths.
100%, John. And I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. I think that's sort of a basic thing that really we've forgotten in many ways in our society. Right now, we have something exciting. We have someone who says, at Nitro Zero, they are a big fan of you, John, and they're watching live. Can you tell us where you're from?
I am from home.
I'm asking the fan.
God.
He hasn't asked you a question yet, but I'll say, ask any questions.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
But that's fantastic.
It is.
And yeah, that's nice. I like the live stream aspect, so we can have like a little live dialogue with our audience, and they could ask you questions and everything.
Do you know, one thing I will tell the audience as they tune in and they watch this more and more is I'm an honest man. When I got a divorce, I realized that my immaturity and things contributed to a detriment to my children's lives for the rest of their lives, because we don't communicate as parents and so on and so forth. So on that day, I decided to be an honest man. Yeah. So when you want to call, you want to talk, you want to do whatever, I will always talk to you truthfully.
I love that.
And as I've always said, I'm going to give you two answers. I'm either going to tell you the truth, or I'm going to tell you it's none of your business.
I love that, John.
That's it. But I'll never lie. I'm team youth. Ask me anything, and I will do the best I can to enrich you. Not make it about me, but make it about you. And that's it.
I love that, John. He says he's from Los Angeles.
Right on.
Nice. Have you ever been out there?
I lived in Los Angeles for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
When I was a kid, my whole life, all I wanted to do was grow up and move to California. And I did. And what was awesome about it is, I had an older brother.
Yeah.
And he told me he hated me every single day of my life until I was 16 years old.
No way.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was 22, and I said, I'm moving to California. Mm-hmm. And my older brother came to me and said, if you think that you're moving without me, think again. So we ended up moving out together, and we drove cross country.
Nice.
And we ended up, and I'll tell you, this was really the best part of my whole life, where the only thing I knew was I was going to pack my U-Haul and go to a place called Leo Carrillo State Park, which is in Malibu, California.
Yeah.
And we took the U-Haul and we went right to Leo Carrillo State Park, and we pitched a tent for a month while I looked for a job. And we ended up living at 1429 North Curzon Avenue.
I love that, John.
Which is, what's funny about that was, if you walk out the door there, if we went to the left, I would be on Curzon and Sunset, and that is where you would pick up all of your female prostitutes. But if you walk just to take a right outside the door, you would go to Curzon and Santa Monica, which is where you pick up all your male prostitutes. And it was always fascinating that there'd be a bus stop at both of them, and I'd be sitting there waiting for a bus, and hilarious. I love LA, and I hope to move back.
I love that. Looks like he asked a question.
Yeah.
He says, John, your stories have been extraordinarily wild. Tell me about the wildest experience you've ever had, period.
Wow.
I guess that's pretty open-ended.
It is, but I'm going to keep it related to Los Angeles.
Okay.
Because it was wild. So we had driven across. One thing I didn't know was that, when I got my U-Haul, and the U-Haul said that the maximum weight is 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So I thought that if you packed it full, that it would weigh 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
I did not know that you could put 6,000 pounds of weight into a capacity of, say, 2,000. So we drove across country with what I would later find out was about 5,000 pounds worth of stuff. So it took forever to get there. So when we first got there, we got our apartment, and in the very first weekend, I got my job, and I went to get to my truck and go to work. So when I went in, I started my truck. I forgot something, and I ran upstairs. And when I went upstairs, I got a knock on my door. And when I answered the door, there was my next door neighbor. And he says, did you used to own a blue truck? And I said, what do you mean used to? And he goes, take a look out your bedroom window. When I ran out, my truck rolled down the driveway. So I don't know if I didn't put it in gear or whatever, but it rolled down the driveway and rolled backwards through the French doors of the living room of my neighbor.
No way.
So I only had headlights coming out of their living room. If you could possibly imagine that. Later on that evening, the building right next door to our new apartment burnt to the ground because of the Santa Ana winds. It caught on fire, and if the winds were not blowing in the opposite direction, it would have been our place that burnt down. And then I think not more than 2 days later, we had our very first 5.5 earthquake, and it happened all in 3 days. And I said, wow. I mean, if we can get through this, then this is meant to be. And one thing I like about Los Angeles, I also like to say, is that in Los Angeles, you can still make money off of a dream, off of a thought. You could go to somebody and say, I've got an idea, and someone will listen to you in Los Angeles. Where in New York or in New England, what happens is they'll go, I have an idea, and they'll go, hey, Tommy, did you hear Johnny's got a fucking idea? I mean, what a riot, huh?
Yeah, that's...
Like, what makes you think you can have an idea?
So I'm not familiar with the culture in Los Angeles, but I have heard that it has sort of that reputation. I want to return briefly to the topic you brought up earlier, which is prostitution in LA. Yeah. And you had mentioned that sort of one side of the street is where the female prostitutes would be, and the other side, male prostitutes.
Right.
In terms of that, situation, are you comfortable telling about your experience? Like, did you ever sleep with a prostitute?
Never, ever, ever. Never,
okay.
Never, ever, ever. And I don't doubt that maybe sometime in the future I may.
Nice.
But I know that it's, I'll be honest with you, like I always say that with my relations, I'm a Scorpio. And so I just think that Scorpios are the sexiest, the most passionate sign going.
Yes.
And I've often said that I would never want a prostitute because I want to know that the moan is real.
That's funny.
I can't participate with somebody that's acting or doing something like that. I want to know that there is a connection. You know what I mean?
That's very interesting.
Not just because I gave them money.
Were you ever tempted to sleep with one?
No.
Never. You never even had...
I've been tempted to sell myself and be one, but I've never ever been tempted to get one. I do, but I tell you something. I know that in the future, if it is, it's only going to be not for the sex. It would always be for the appreciation of the human body, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
I think once you hit a certain age, your opportunities to be with beautiful physically might be more limited. You know what I mean?
But I think with AI you could figure it out.
Believe me, I'll tell you something.
You'll be able to do whatever you
I've
want.
had some best friends throughout my whole life. You know what I mean? And they never age. They always do the same thing I want them to do every time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So AI is, but for me personally...
But you don't have to, I'm not suggesting you sleep with AI. You're saying that with age it might give you certain limitations where you wouldn't be able to pursue the sort of sexual fantasies that you'd had. And what I'm suggesting is that with AI, you would be able to revert your body to whatever state you want, so you could whenever you want.
Right.
But obviously, at your own discretion.
Well, for me, like I said, it's just the appreciation. Like I do think the human body is beautiful, and I do think, and I'll tell you something. I think that they're all beautiful.
Yes.
I really do not. I remember one time, I don't know if I had an issue with nudity, but I wanted to address one if I did. So I remember going to a nude beach by myself one time, and it wasn't for any other reason but to understand what it would feel like to take your clothes off and be naked in public.
Yeah.
And I found it to be quite interesting. I mean, it's such a concept that you have a hard time understanding. But what I noticed was two things. I noticed that everybody was good looking naked. But I also noticed that everybody looked a lot more Neanderthal. And when the people were walking down to the beach, it didn't look like they were going swimming. It looked like they were going to fetch water. So that was kind of an interesting concept. But, two things I don't really like. I don't like racism based on color, and I don't like body image.
Yeah.
Because they're both stupid.
Yeah.
If you judge somebody because of the color of their skin, you're just stupid.
Yes.
You just are, because you don't even know who they are.
Yes, I preach this a lot, like color blindness. And I know, some people would say that it's wrong to be colorblind, but genuinely and truthfully, I'm colorblind. Like, I have no, shame in saying
you
that.
should be.
Yeah, I don't treat you any differently if you're black, white, gay, straight, lesbian, transgender, transsexual, pansexual, demisexual.
Well, it's not even if you have a problem with those. It's that if you see somebody who's wearing pink, you're assuming that they're homosexual, or you're assuming whatever.
Yeah, I just see people.
Just let them be.
Yeah, just let people be people, whatever it is.
Find out who they are before you judge them.
100%. It's that is a really important thing, I think. Color blindness, I think we can embrace that again. And not again, but I'm saying, I think in recent years we've been, talking about race so much, and it's been making things so, tense. But I remember watching, the old Rocky movies, and then they would have, a cast of all sorts of different ethnicities, and they would never even address the fact that they were different. It was just given. Now if they make a movie with a black character and a white character, they'll sort of make the whole plot about how they're different, and it's
right.
So in some ways we have reverted bad. I'm not saying in most ways we've gotten better, but I'm saying it would be great if we could start making movies again with a mixed cast, a culturally and ethnically diverse cast, without having the whole point of the movie to be about their difference because of that. If they could just treat it like normal.
I think I think that they have really made huge advances on that.
Yeah.
And I think that unfortunately lots of that stuff has to just take time.
Yeah.
Because I just watched The Little Mermaid live action on TV.
Yeah.
And it takes a little while when you have a black Ariel, who is going after an English Eric, who has a black queen of a mother, and I can't remember who the king was. So none of it is being spoken about. Just like when I went to see Hamilton, you realize there's only 2 white people in the cast, but it's not all black. They're all shades, and it really would make sense. And I think that we're getting to that point where it really is no longer. But even for me, like I've said, when it comes to racism, in my opinion, I think we're all racist on some level because it's so cultural into us that it's very hard to say that you're not at all.
Yeah, but you can become not, you can, it's sort of the same thing about being kind. It's you're not born completely kind or benevolent or whatever, but it's you can easily get to the point of not being racist because it's just don't consider. I guess it's easier for me to say because I grew up in a time where it was just kind of how it was. We didn't even talk about race. It's just how it is, people are different races. So it's that's why I get insulted when people tell me not to be colorblind, because I'm why am I going to intentionally start seeing differences when I just never did in the first place?
Right. Well, believe me, I think that, there's 2 ways to do it, because you can celebrate color.
Yeah. But you don't have to.
But you don't have to put it into categories. Yeah. Because your color is something that you are.
Yeah.
But you don't judge that by their color. You have to get to know the individual's experience. Because, someone will say, go back to your country, and they'll go, I'm from Sacramento, California.
Yeah.
I look Asian, but I'm from Sacramento. So before you go doing all that, but again, you know what I like? Time has proven me to be right, and I don't mean that to be whatever. But when you realize that the world doesn't tell you the truth all the time. So when I was younger and it was gay or straight, those were just the 2 choices that you had.
Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't having a problem making the choice. It was hard for me to understand that you could only be limited
100%.
if you were a man, that you cannot love someone of the same sex. If you're a female, you cannot love someone of the same sex. I found that completely impossible to think about.
Yes.
Whether it was me or not, some other people can love other people. And so I would question that. And so it just didn't make sense. And you know what? I was right. Yeah. And it's the same thing with alcohol. I've always thought that weed is far better than alcohol.
Yeah, of course.
But when I would be hanging with my drunk friends and I would go out to get high, they'd go, oh, John's got to go get high. And I'd go, you smell like vodka.
Yeah.
And it's
totally
like, what makes you think that I'm, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Believe me, I'll judge you, but I'll only judge you by your actions.
Yeah,
not by what you look like.
I really appreciate that point. And it's true. The guy, Nitros, by the way, Nitros, if you can hear us, what is your first name so we don't have to keep calling you Nitros?
Right.
You are great. You are currently one of 2 watchers, and you are the only one asking questions so far, so we really appreciate that. He asked another question.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't mean to assume your gender, by the way,
Right.
Nitros.
Right.
I guess that could be a girl.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
You talked about a relationship that you had with one of your co-workers in the previous episode. Can you tell me more about that? So I think he's referring to like the close relationship you had with a coworker. You talked about it on the first podcast.
Well, I'll tell you, the coworker that I'm assuming would be the female boss.
I think it was the young man, like the 19-year-old man.
Oh, yeah. Who's in the kitchen? Well, who's still one of my dearest and bestest friends.
Yes.
Yeah, because again, it just goes back to what I'm saying with culture. Like people just assume it's like, John, you're a 43-year-old. What are you doing hanging with a 19-year-old? People are going to think you're this.
Yeah, of course.
They're going to think you're that. Like I lived in Somerville, and I was just blocks away from the public pool. And I would tell people I went down for a swim, and they'd go, you go down there as a single man to the public pool? And I'll go, yeah. Well, John, you know they're going to think you're... And I'm going, what? I'm going swimming.
Yeah, 100%.
So all these things that you do.
Yeah.
And yet, if I had denied my friendship with you because of age, look what... And with you for listening, I am so much smarter, wiser, benefited by my friendship with the young people.
Yeah, I think that's something we all can learn from, especially also my generation. I don't see anyone my age being friends with like people who are older.
Right.
It just doesn't happen because they have like a mental blockade.
Right.
But I like that point you made about how sometimes as single guys we're like seen in a certain way. I had this feeling when I was eating an ice cream cone in public. I went by myself and ordered, and I was at this park and just eating this ice cream cone and I was thinking, wow, like people probably think I felt like all this like nervousness being like a single guy eating an ice cream cone in public because it's not like I guess
what your presence seems to represent yourself.
Yeah, it's not something you see like guys, and also you won't see like a guy like not looking at his phone. Like also when you're just out in public eating an ice cream cone, not talking to anyone or looking at your phone. I got a little nervous because I'm like, wow, people I think are thinking I'm weird or something.
Yeah.
It's like there is that pressure. Some of it's for good reason because there are like bad, awful people out there and like creeps and all that. But we definitely shouldn't be ashamed as single men to just do normal stuff like go swimming or eat an ice cream.
Well, the only thing that I will say in many ways is that I am a good man. I was raised by a good man, and I have fathered a good man, and it's all very important. So I understand why people think it, because men prior to us have created a reputation.
Yes.
But you and I have to suffer from that reputation.
Yeah, but we don't even need to. We can just ignore the...
Well, you can ignore it and know that you're not part of it. But like I said, I got a 1.5 year restraining order against me when I was divorced, not because of my actions, but because of the actions of men before me. When 11 out of the 17 homicides in Maine are domestic assault.
Yes.
When my wife says that I assaulted her and he doesn't know, they just create things in order to the situation because they don't know.
You're right.
So if it wasn't for the bad behavior of the 11 in Maine that hurt their spouses, there wouldn't have been the precedent set for me to be judged by.
And so on that topic, it's something I have limited experience with. I've had, I won't go into that, but I've had to, how do I say this? Like, I don't want to say like I've had legal problems because I haven't really had like crazy anything, but I've had to deal with court and all of that just for some minor
issues,
minor traffic violations, etc., whatever it is. But I don't have experience with something so serious like you're talking about. So you said you got a 1.5 year restraining order. Did you have to ever do any time in jail or like a holding facility?
No.
Okay.
No, as a matter of fact, it's funny because I've always done what I was supposed to do. Even when it was, you know what I mean?
So you showed up to court.
Exactly. Interestingly enough, probably 2 months after the whole thing happened, they called me up, the sheriff's department from this particular place, and said, Mr. Martin, you're going to need to come down to the sheriff's department because we forgot to arrest you on the original date.
Yeah.
So it was just things like that, you know what I mean? Where it's like, because I was so... And then what happens, as I know, is that when you are
crazy
under this, I know that in the state of Maine and probably anywhere else with men, is that you're going to have to go through 48 weeks of anger management. It's going to be just mandatory, and that if you go to 48 weeks, that'll keep like maybe away from jail. Wow. So I went to 48 weeks of anger management.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, when I was going at the beginning of it all, I just knew that I had to, so I was going to go. So I didn't think that I was angry, but I went in wholeheartedly, and I had no problem with it. And the one thing that I will say is it was a great thing to learn. Yeah. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I can imagine.
And what would you tell to a young man? So how old were you, first of all, when you were accused of assault?
43.
43.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that. So what would you say to someone who is 43 right now, to like a young man or a man who isn't anticipating something like what happening? How would you advise me, for example, to avoid a situation like that? Because it isn't, you did have to deal with a lot of legal repercussions.
I think that is just a great question.
Yeah.
I think it's an important question because of, like I said, I think the dynamics of what the history has proven is that if a man is going up against a woman in court, I think that a man is at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
When you go
Why do you think so?
Because it's just generational. You know what I mean? Just generational. I mean, the stories haven't been either reported or whatever, that it's more the men that have been abusive most of the time. You don't hear the abusive female over the male. So it's just not the dialogue of it. So, but what I would just say is that, number one, you need to know that the minute it is not against the law to speak your words. It is against the law to lay one finger on anybody.
Yeah.
So don't ever lay a hand on anybody.
Yeah.
You are breaking the law. Now, I'd also tell you, though, as a man, do not let anybody hit you. Don't. You're not allowed to hit, and you are not allowed to be hit. So lots of times, because as men, we are taught, even by men, oh, what, you couldn't take a slap? Oh, your girlfriend hurt you? It's not that they hurt us. It's just that everyone needs to be held accountable for their bad behavior. And until it gets acknowledged, I don't think that a lot of change is going to happen with men. And men, my goal in life, truly, is to make men better. And not because I think they're bad, but because I think they're limiting themselves.
Yeah.
That's it. You're limiting your potential by not identifying your own feelings. You're limiting your potential by not learning enough vocabulary to express how you feel. And you are limiting yourself by not telling your fathers and your sons and your friends that you love them and you cherish them.
Spot on.
So that's what I'm really good at.
Yeah.
I will tell people how much I love you.
I love that, John. Nitros asks, John, have you ever been in a fight?
I have. Only one. And I was beat up so hard, I ran from every fight ever since.
Yeah.
The very first fight I was ever in, I was 8 years old, and I was defending the honor of 2 girls that were being abused from a bully. And so I did start the fight. I went up and I said, stop it, stop it, stop it. And when I went to go make him stop it, I think I got one hit in, and then he flipped me over on my back and just punched me hard. And the 2 girls ended up saving me, which is kind of an ironic thing,
Wow.
But it just hurt. I mean, I've run from every fight that I've ever gotten close to because one of the reasons is I said I don't want to suffer from an ignorance. I don't want to be hit by an ignorant fool and then suffer the pain from it.
Yes.
I'd rather walk away from it.
I agree with you, and a lot of the time as men, we want to defend our honor, of course. It's natural for us, but we are so scared of making the calculation this is beneath me. Mm-hmm. I can walk away from this with no scratches, no legal repercussions, no nothing, and keep living my life and I never have to deal with this asshole again.
Absolutely.
And it's like, a lot of the time in the moment, we're so scared of looking weak or defending our honor that we make misguided calculations in those moments. But the thing is, like, more and more I've been realizing, John, that, like, the people who screw me over, the people who antagonize me, who send insults my way, who throw shade, whatever it is, they're beneath me.
Absolutely.
It's like just the other day, this person was saying, you know, all of these negative things about me. You're an asshole, you're this, you're that, you're crazy, whatever. And I'm just like, it pissed me off for a second, like my instinct, but then, like, this part of my mind has grown so powerful where it's just like, my mind is like shutting it down. It's like, no, you're bigger than this, walk on, keep moving on with your day. This person is small fish, like, they're bigger fish to fry. Huge fish so large they could fill up 10 swimming pools, like fish that weigh more than the combined mass of all of society. So there are bigger things out there. You're wasting your own time and hurting yourself by worrying about the petty little things.
Do you want to be a small minnow or do you want to be an ignorant whale? I still want to be a smart minnow.
100%.
You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I remember having a guy say one time, I remember saying that I wish I had maybe gotten into the military because I would have thought I would have gotten some, you know, whatever.
Gusto.
Yeah, and what he said to me was interesting. He says, you know, John, just because you identify problems before they become problems doesn't make you any less courageous.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, like I knew a friend of mine who would let it go, and then it would escalate to the point where it had to be physical. Where I knew that the minute they walked in the door, they're going to be a problem. So I just took care of it immediately. I don't let it escalate. And so I don't really run into a lot of problems because I know how to de-escalate immediately. Yeah. And it's the same thing with a fight. If I'm going to get into it, I know that I'm going to stop it immediately because I know that I don't fight. I'm not a fighter. So if I keep this going, I'm going to get hit.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get hit. And so I can just... And not only that, but believe me, I've never had the ego ever to think that... Like, one thing I remember, and I like this, and I would endorse this to anybody. Again, it goes back to a Bible when you think about turn the other cheek and all those types of things. But I've had to apologize to very few people. But I've had a lot of people apologize to me in terms of, like when I was young, people said, you know, John, if you just do this one thing, they won't do it again. If you beat him up one time, if you learn how to fight, it won't happen anymore. And it was like, no, I'm not learning how to fight to do this. This is who I am. I mean, I'd rather just call me what you want. But I've never had to apologize for my behavior. And I didn't escalate bad behavior to equalize bad behavior so I wouldn't get it.
I like that.
So I've just stayed true to who I am. And it suffered and it hurt. But I get to at least stand up for what I stood for. You know what I mean? Which was, you're still the idiot because you beat me up. So you can say that I was weak and I should have learned, I should have got better. But you were the one beating me up. It wasn't me beating you up. You know what I mean? So it's like, don't put anything on me. I was just sitting down, and you came at me, and you're telling me to stand up for myself, and I was just sitting down doing nothing.
John, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, as men, you know, this is very important information, especially now with all the violence and the chaos, etc. John, something that people have been pointing out, and something I noticed initially right off the bat from meeting you, you're a high energy individual. You have a lot of energy and creative ambition, and it seems like nothing can, like, you never run out of things to say. You never run out of energy, lessons to teach. You're always doing something, whether you're at a show, a festival, every week, like performing constantly, it seems. So it's like a lot of people ask you the question, you know, John, because there are a lot of people after they reach a certain age, men, women, who just become so lazy and just say to themselves, they're telling people like, oh, I'm tired, I don't have the energy to do this, to chase my dream, like, dreams are for young people, whatever, I hear that one a lot, and I'm like, what do you say to those people? Because you have a lot of audience who is above, you have a huge audience, you know, between 25 and 34, but there's also a good 20% above the age of 50 who's watching. So what do you say to those people who are just awestruck at how energetic you are? Like, what do you say to them? Because they're very lost and they want that energy that you have.
Boy, I'll tell you, if you recognize that in me, then I'm very proud of that, because you are right, but The only thing that I can say is that it is my faith. I feel that the life that I live is a gift that's been given to me.
I love that.
And I don't want to waste a minute of it.
John, I love that.
Yeah, truly.
I love that.
And again, because I'm 62, what happens if I live to 92? Yes. Am I spending 30 years just slowing down, waiting to die?
You're not going to slow down anytime.
It doesn't work that way.
I love that.
And I'll be honest with you, like I said, I've often asked people lots of times, how old is your spirit? Mm-hmm. So truthfully, I am like 13. I mean, I've still got the dreams of my singing career, my Grammy Award winning. Like at this point in my life, I plan on being an EGOT. I will get an Emmy, a Grammy. I'll get an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. And I will win all of those awards. And I think that it's capable and it's possible because as a singer, you can sing a song and write a song and perform it differently. But and you know what amazes me is that when I tell people like that, they all go, yeah, right. And they don't acknowledge it, that it could be true. You know what I mean? In fact, the people that are closest to me, because they care, they want to prepare me that, good for you, John, but it'll probably never happen, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's what, people, so I love what you're saying. Like, so I'll tell people about my podcast, right? And like how well it's done. And they'll be like, Ben, like, that's so great. So even if you don't ever make another viral video again, you already have 80,000 views or whatever. Right. And I'm like, you're missing the point. Like, it's not, you really think in your mind that I'm never gonna be viral again. Right. I go viral every single day.
Exactly.
Like, it's not a luck thing.
And you know why?
Yeah.
And you think you should, and you think it's important.
Yes.
And it's valuable. Mm-hmm. But again, it's so frustrating. Like I've often said,
they project their doubt onto you. Like, just tell me you're proud or like that's cool that you're doing it. It's like,
when you think about Albert Einstein, who could he have a conversation with that didn't think he was a nut? Because nobody could understand what he's thinking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he like for example, like when you and I we talk about things, it's like, how is it that these people don't get this? But it's truly because they just don't get it.
Yeah, well, I think they're starting to wake up to it, and some of our audience does get it. We have a lot of...
Oh, I think they're listening because they do.
Yeah, it's overwhelmingly support that we're getting. There is that negativity, but especially with you, John, it's primarily support. So in terms of all of these things, it's like, you mentioned just now, it's sort of like they don't get it. They don't get it, and... What I wanted to say was, I'm kind of blanking out, but I had something I was...
Well, I remember my sister used to say to me at one time, and my sister's on board with me, but she used to say to me, John, is your balloon ever going to land?
Yeah.
And I would say, if you are waiting for it to land, I wouldn't wait. Because I don't. You know what's so funny? I used a line recently. I said, at age 50, I jumped off the cliff to my future. And when I jumped off the cliff, I never hit the ground.
Yeah.
And since that day, I've only increased my altitude.
Oh, okay.
So I am flying now at, say, 200,000 feet above the ground. So back last September, I was pushed, I stumbled, and I maybe fell, but I fell on a cloud. So that is what proved that I had been airborne all those years, because I didn't fall on the ground. I fell into a cloud where, for example, yesterday, I had 14 cents in my pocket, and yet someone called me up and offered 2 great tickets to the Red Sox. And then someone up and said, I'm over here, come on over, let me buy you dinner.
I love that.
And it's kind of like, I've never been in a more uncomfortable situation in many ways, and yet the angels and the friendships and the love that is around me has nurtured me that doesn't happen on Earth.
100%. And I just did remember what I have been thinking of. It's because you mentioned Albert Einstein, and I love history. I don't know if you've noticed by now, but I'm big on history. I love it so much. Did you know he was married to his first cousin?
I did not know that.
Yeah, his wife was his first cousin. It's crazy, like, today.
Well, did you know that my great-grandparents were first cousins?
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome, John.
Which makes, I think, I'm not certain, but I would think that if my great-grandparents were first cousins, does that make my brothers and sisters fourth cousins? Or am I fourth cousins with my sister?
It's a lot of math for me. I can't seem to...
I find that fascinating, though.
Yeah. But regardless, it's like, that was just back in the 1930s or whatever. It's like, that was just less than 100 years ago. That was totally normal.
Yeah.
And now, today, it's like obviously very not normal, because we do know it's probably best not to do that. I'm not advocating for that, guys.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that the whole reason I brought up this Albert Einstein thing is that, like, there are lots of things where our perception of history is just wrong. It's okay. So John, I was thinking about this like yesterday. Did you know? Let me just fact check myself, because a lot of people are telling me I need to fact check myself more. But so let me tell you a fact right here.
Okay. I endorse facts. I endorse double checking, triple checking facts.
Okay. So John, if you had to guess, right? Okay, so you know the engine and how the engine works in a lot of cars, like a gas combustion engine operates off of gasoline. Before that, we had the steam engine, right, with what powered steam trains. Basically, it heats up water, and then the steam uses pressure to power pistons. It's very complicated.
Right.
It's not a simple machine. John, when would you guess they invented this machine? Like this complicated engine which can power things?
Like, I would say 1825.
So you're close, but flashback, it was invented in like 1698.
Right.
The first commercial one was in 1712.
Right.
So
And what did that push in the first time? Wasn't pushing the train.
The initial use was, my understanding, to pump water from wells.
Right.
But that's fascinating. So you're telling me that over 300 years ago, they had a complicated steam engine with hundreds of tiny little, like, very delicate parts and gears and everything and pistons and all that. It's like, that was 300 years ago. And then I was thinking, they invented the first computer before Christ.
Right. Oh, wow. Wow.
It was called the Antikythera. It's an ancient Greek computer.
And when we say that, obviously, it's the concepts of what a computer would do, as opposed to, it's not like an electrical type of thing.
Yeah, it's not electrical, guys. It's an
concept.
analog computer, but a calculator, basically.
Right.
So a very complicated, it's called the Antikythera mechanism, considered the oldest known example of an ancient Greek analog computer. It was discovered in a shipwreck in 1901, and it basically is a very complicated box with tons of little gears and levers, and they don't know what it calculates, but they think that it had something to do with astronomical projections.
Right.
But I find that fascinating. Like, so before Christ, it's crazy, and then you get into all of these other things. Does history interest you at all, or archaeology at all?
It all interests me.
Okay,
all interests me.
Something I wanted to ask your opinion on is a sort of controversial in terms of archaeology, right? Because you have two schools of thought: the mainstream archaeologists, and then the people in my lane who are kind of questioning them. Graham Hancock is a big proponent of alternate archaeology, or whatever it is, like questioning the mainstream ideas. So the mainstream says that the pyramids in Egypt were built by the Egyptians, 3,500, 4,500 years ago, but there's a whole host of evidence that shows they were built much earlier than this. And there's also evidence that shows they weren't primarily used to be tombs, that they could have had some sort of they could have been like factories that harness electromagnetic waves, potentially.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on the pyramids? Like, how do you think they came to be?
I think that let me ask you this. I would say that what we know now, and when I say that, I mean like the importance of numbers and mathematical equations and how things all relate. Even though we know that now, that wouldn't make it not true all those years ago.
What do you mean?
So, like, with all the things that we know about like, we're back in the caveman, like all the things like we know about physics and like laser beams, like all these things. That knowledge was there. It's just that we didn't know it. It took all the time for us to do it. So when you look at the greatness of the universe and everything that's going on with the universe, even though back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, they didn't know anything about it, it didn't mean that it wasn't there. It's just that we needed to get the knowledge about it.
Yeah.
And so my point being is that, like, what I find fascinating, I'm all over the place here, but when I think about the pyramids, I put it in relation to this. You know, there's that group called the Knights Templar, right?
Yeah,
so
it's
there
sort of like
is
a secret society, right. Cloak and dagger kind of thing.
So there is a structure in Newport, Rhode Island. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but it's got arches,
yes.
And it's like maybe octagonal or something.
The stone,
yeah, and it comes up in the center.
All the rules for life, or
well, I know that what happens is on the
wait, sorry, where is it again?
It's in Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And it sits in a park and it's right to the corner.
Yeah.
And it's round and it's tall and it's got arches around. But what happens is on December 21st of every single year at 9 a.m., the sun and the position of the sun shines through a hole inside that tower that hits a rock. That rock's reflection of that light beams all the way to hit something in Iowa.
What?
So how they knew that, this is built way back when they were around. So like, for example, they're also saying like down in New Bedford or Fall River, there's a rock that has a couple of engravings. Yeah. And then there's also been found one up in Maine. And they were saying that maybe back then they arrived in this country and the only way that they could remember where they were or what they were doing or whatever was to mark this down so if anyone ever came back and so on and so forth. So, but I'm just saying that the knowledge to be able to direct a light on the 21st of December to a place in Iowa makes me wonder what the pyramids are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just can't be lifting blocks on top of blocks.
Yes, and
there was something there that meant something.
You're totally right.
Now, whether that, for all I know, is that pyramid form is a geometric form that could affect space, direction, whatever that would be, the panel. So I don't know there's so much about it. I do find it completely, like the one thing I don't like about science is when they say, that goes back to that was 10 million years old. You know what I mean? That bone. I question the carbon dating. I question a lot of the stuff because the science has been proved wrong.
Yeah,
sometimes. Like we think we knew this forever, and now we realize it's not true.
We used to think in the medieval times that leeches would cure just about any ailment you might have.
Right. So you don't want to say that what's right is now is whatever.
Yes, we tend to be very arrogant as people. We always think that right now in this time we know everything and all the answers, but then you just zoom out and it's like, no, we don't. Just like in life, like right now I think I know everything. Right. When I get to be a little older, I'll look back and say, wow, there's a lot left to learn. Right. And
well, that great line, right, is smart knows everything and wisdom knows nothing.
Yes.
It's just a great line.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just admiring how clear this audio sounds. Like your voice is...
It's all your work. You've done it.
It's gonna boom like...
Tell you guys, Ben's getting this done. He's, just like my music career, just like his career. If you want to get something done, do it. 100%. It's gonna be right and people are gonna want to jump on board.
Okay, so as I kind of break down this set, I'll give you some time to just look at the camera and talk and share your wisdom. Do you want to shout out? I noticed you're wearing the taboo hat.
Yeah.
Tell me about that if you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I sing, and this is what I would put out there, is I sing every Tuesday night at the Liberty Hotel.
Nice.
So I certainly suggest anybody who's in Boston, come on down to Liberty. They gave me this hat to wear, and the thing that I like, every once in a while when you go into places and you sing or something, they give you a piece of merchandise, whether it's a tie tack or something. And what that does is it lets you know that person, you don't need to check in on them because they're wearing something that implies that they're around. So I could wear a tie pin, and then I can kind of walk around the club and not have everybody say, who are you and where are you going, because they know that you got the tie tack and that you can do it. So it's the same thing with this hat. So when I wear this hat, it allows me to kind of walk the places that and get in places that I wouldn't normally be able to get into without having the hat.
I love that.
Yeah. But again, to anybody who is paying attention to me, I certainly celebrate Ben and all that he's doing.
Thank you.
I celebrate all of you for listening, because I'll tell you, it is you're putting your time into a good place. because we're not going to fuck you over. We're just talking, and we want the best. And then I would also tell you, because I say this all the time, not to what would be the word I'm looking for?
Proselytize? What's that?
No, it's like poach. Like poach. I don't want to poach people from yours to mine. But John Everett Martin, if you find me, I always say that I am on the tarmac of great fame. I think that my plane is going to be taking off shortly. And I tell everybody, if you find me and hook up with me on social media prior to the plane taking off, because I always say when the plane's taking off, I'm going to wipe away all of my old social media. But every single name that is listed will have a lifetime first-class seat on Air John Everett Martin. Because what I have noticed, as I'm sure that everybody notices, people like you more when they think they can get something from you. And so like being a 62-year-old man, I can be in a club and I'm not doing anything. I'll be performing in a half an hour. But I'm sitting there drinking my beer, nobody really wants to know me. I'm just an old dude. But after I get up on stage, the cameras come out, the things come out. Then I'm off stage and So that's why I say, if you like me now, I will love you forever. But when things change, one thing I've learned so much, and I'm going to love you no matter what. I'm not going to change my personality. But selfishly and sadly, some people really just care about their own interests more than anything else. And it's kind of sad in a way. But, I've never hurt anybody for my benefit. I don't think that's anything that you can ever do. If you want to work with a win-win-win, but I would never hurt you in order for me to benefit. And don't ever do it. It's just not the right thing to do.
You can keep going.
Yeah, I say that, when we talk about religion and we talk about these things, I'm going to be bold and say this. I've never been a sinner. I'm not a sinner. I've been a kid that made a lot of mistakes. I've had a lot of things that we've done wrong, but I've never intentionally hurt someone. I've never hurt anyone's soul. I've never rationalized hurting someone's soul. I love all living things. So when people want to classify me as a sinner, I'm not. In fact, I just think that people are trying to educate us all and teach us all that we're not worthy of love and things. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you're loving, let yourself be loved. There's a song called Nature Boy, Nat King Cole, and it goes, how does it go? The line goes, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. And that is absolutely true. And again, for me, it's a lot easier to love than to be loved in return. But, we'll get there. But reach out when you can. Reach out to Ben. Come back. Bring a friend to this podcast. And we'll all learn from each other. And I really would love to hear more of the interaction. So if you got questions, you've got things, because I'm not an idiot. I promise you, you're investing your time into this podcast, into a good place. We're not, like I say, I've got a faith that gives me strength. I've got a faith that brings me love and peace. But I'm not teaching you my faith. I'm just teaching you to find your own. And it all starts with just loving yourself and being valued enough to be worthy of love. I think so many people, they just don't feel worthy of it. And they, one story that I've always said is that if you told your parents that you were going to be home at midnight and you don't show up until 2 a.m., you sneak in the back door hoping that they don't realize that you got in late. So you go to bed wondering if they heard, you will go to breakfast the next morning wondering if they found out, and you're concerned. But if you had just gone home at 2, went into their bedroom and knocked on the door and said, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry I'm late. This is why I'll talk to you in the morning. You'd go to bed with love, and they would go to bed with peace. And I think in faith that the reason why people don't go towards God or love is because they feel like they're unworthy of it. And when you make yourself worthy of it, then you can go get it. So love people and then receive love, and you are going to be more powerful than you will ever be in your whole life. Love is the power, and love is the fuel. Again, if there's anything, because I'm got energy. There's a true line, and it's real, when they say, do what brings you energy. So again, I could be zonked out, I don't want to do anything, but if someone says, you want to go perform and sing on stage? I'm on stage, and I am ready to. Yeah, this podcast is a classic example. I didn't wake up until noon. I showered, got something to eat, had to get my coffee, throw a bagel down my throat because I wasn't even ready to talk. But once I saw Ben, once I got here, once the cameras go on, once I know that you're listening, and once I know that what I say could benefit you, because sometimes you just want someone to say something that you believe and that it's okay. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm on your side. It's okay to be who you are, what you are. You know, fuck it all. Just don't be the problem. Just don't be the problem. And then live your life. I'm not the problem. You know, I've often said that lots of times I go, when I meet good people, like I'll say, whoever raised Ben, I know it's his parent, they raised a solution. They didn't raise a problem. I know people who brought 4 problems into this world. My parents were 2 people, but they brought 5 solutions into the world. And even though my parents and my brother are gone, there's still 4, including me, that is doing everything they can to keep everything my parents stood for alive. We'll wrap this up. I know that he's going and all that good stuff, but I'm off shortly. I really enjoy talking to you guys. Let's make the world a more beautiful place. Let's use our power. Let's use the love. There's so much more good than there is bad.
That's 100%.
There's so much more good that's bad.
Yeah, a lot of times, guys, we highlight the negativity. Like the news, you know, they don't sell any articles talking about the positive and generous things people have done the previous week. It's always, the headlines are always negative. Let's focus on that and let's stop giving them that power. Just stop watching negative media. Focus on watching things which are talking about solutions, just like John said.
Well, you know what I heard though, and I don't know, you know, how much I believe this anymore, but I heard that with news is that what news is it's the reporting of the out of the ordinary. So in a good and healthy society, you're kind of hoping that the news is bad because that is out of the ordinary. But if you're in a war-torn, terrible place, they want to report good news because that's not what's normally happening. So it's just a fascinating concept to think about. I don't know if it's true or not, but I do think that, thankfully, it's kind of like, again, it's like time flies if you're having fun. So if your life is going fast, it's meaning that you're having a good life. If your life is moving slow, it's probably because you've broken your arm and then broken your hip and you've been in the hospital for 5 weeks and then you're going back. That makes a long life. I've often said that right now, if I wanted to double the length of my life, I should just move someplace and sit in a chair for the next 30 years because it would turn into about 90 years of feeling like I'm sitting in a friggin' chair.
You're right about that.
But if I run for the next 30 years, it's going to feel like 15.
John, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, and the point you made just now, like, in terms of living life and, you know, being a solution. Oh, what you said about the war-torn countries and everything, how they'll focus on, you know, positive things. I noticed that, like, in North Korea or Russia or whatever, the news is typically, like, showcasing the fake, happy version.
Right.
But why is it, John, that we can't, just because things are going well in a country, why do we have to focus on negative? Like, why can't it just be positive?
I think that, I'll be honest with you, I think it's for the same reason why, if you and I are going to, reason why people gossip. You know, people like to hear it. People don't want to hear it. Like, there's a naturalness, I think, sadly, in humans, that if you're going to gossip, you're not gossiping about what a wonderful person they are. You want to gossip about what they've done wrong, because they think that everything is so good about those people, but no, there's really bad about them. You know, and then to the same point where if someone's really bad, they'll go, well, you know what, though? They're not all that bad. They do this as well. And it's like, yeah, I get it, but you know, I think that again, if everybody just focuses on what's coming out of their mouth, what's coming out of there is right and wrong, and I do believe that right's going to win, good's going to win, bad will never win. It'll lose a battle, but it's not going to win the war, ever. So just stay on the right side of good. You know, if you make the right choice. One line that I'll finish with is, a good life is a result of a series of good decisions, and a bad life is a result of a series of bad decisions. You don't live or die by one good decision or one bad decision. It's how you live your life.
Yeah, let me, if you're planning on wrapping up now.
Yeah.
Let me just say goodbye
Right.
to them with you.
Right on.
Guys, thank you. Like, John, thank you. Everyone out there right now who's watching, you guys are making this possible just like we are, just like John is. Every week, John is so consistent and dedicated. He just shows up and he gets the job done. And, you know, when it's just natural, like the way we're talking, we don't see this stuff like work. This is really easy for us because we're not faking. We're not making a script and saying like, oh, we have to do this or whatever because we want to be seen in a certain way.
That's not our ego. We don't want you to think, oh, aren't we wonderful?
Like, guys, we love you so much, but we don't care, you know, what you think of us. You know, it sounds rude to say, but it's just not within us at this point. You know, John and I have been through enough in life to understand that worrying about that stuff doesn't take us far. But for those of you who have been watching, commenting, you know, watching the streams or whatever, thank you guys. Like, and thank you for the haters too, because, you know, just anyone who's watching us, that's what we want to be putting out positive messaging. You know, we want to help make the world a better place, be a solution. We want to figure stuff out. I want to figure out why we exist, you know?
Well, let me tell you, I don't mean to interrupt, but before you wrap up, I just wanted to say the one thing, which is that what you have to be really strong in is that if the majority of the world is a bit fucked up, when you try and seek the approval of the majority, you're seeking the approval of the fucked up.
Yeah.
So if you're not fucked up, then you have to be really strong to that 30% that aren't, because 70% are saying that you're the one that's messed up, but you're not. If you're speaking for love, like again, people all the time, I've heard it more and more and more again, John, people think I'm just shtick. You know, people just think that you're this and that, and I'll go, well, they should know me long enough to know that I'm not, but I don't really care if you think that I am. It's more, do you not want to believe that someone can be positive? Do you not want to believe that someone actually cares about you more than me? I mean, those qualities still exist in humans, that they're not completely self-centered and egotistical. I've got an ego like anybody else, but that doesn't mean that you can't have one with me. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I don't have to have you be nothing so I can be something, because we both can be something.
100%.
You know, so I'm here for you. Reach out anytime.
Thank
Ben
you
is here
guys.
for you.
This has been a wonderful episode.
Right
this
on.
was the 13th, which is an unlucky number, but you know, we're not focused on that. We're focused on the 14th. So have a good one, guys. We'll be back as soon as we can. And
I think pod.
100%. And John, don't worry about poaching. That's your. You use this platform to generate whatever it is. Like it's your platform. You talk and. Guys, follow John on Instagram. He's been posting really cool reels lately. I saw the ones with your pants, like the checkered pants.
Yeah,
awesome.
I really like that one a lot with the slow motion. I went into a slow motion leg cross, and it was. God bless you. Tune in again next time.